From Wall Street to Main Street, this is Lalate.
It's a big early morning of Mornings LA with incredible great news as your $3.5 trillion recon passed. A subcommittee of the House passed your $3.5 trillion recon. That's the budget subcommittee. Cluster number one's checks in there passed. Twos passed. And threes passed. These incredible checks across the board are the biggest payouts we've ever seen in this history's channel. Money for seniors, workers, and other people across the board. Then the exciting details as no less than a half dozen Democratic senators and House members confirmed to viewers of this channel over and over again, nearly 1,000 viewers, that there will be an IRS monthly stimulus check in there. In fact, Leader Schumer's office confirming the news as well to viewers of this channel this week, and Sanders as well. Then what's going on with those meetings between the president and those House and Senate Democrats? I have the latest details from Congress, as the president is expected to have more meetings today to figure out how to get the roads and bridges and the recon over the finish line. But in the words of AOC yesterday, just call the vote on the recon right now. What are we waiting for? I like that. I like that. It makes sense. And with that, the big exciting details is that this weekend will be a jam-packed weekend with incredible details across the board about your fourth stimulus check update 2021 with congressional leaders and meetings all weekend long. It's going to be a jam-packed weekend. Let's get to it as Early Mornings LA starts right now. Trust me, this weekend will be jam-packed. Remember last weekend? A $3.5 trillion reconciliation budget agreement passes the House of Representatives. I go on camera. I'm the only person on the planet recording that it occurred. Broadcast media didn't cover it. Print media never covered it. And YouTube channels never covered it. Well, guess what? It's going to be sort of the same thing today. Because all this weekend, the House and Senate members will be caucusing with themselves and with the president about your recon and your bipartisan. And I will have the details on the hour, by the hour. It's going to be a jam-packed weekend. And I have everything that's happening across the board. But in this recording, we'll go over the recon that passed last weekend. Cluster number 1, 2, and 3 checks all passing. We'll be going over the incredible details of that IRS stimulus check inclusion. 1,000 viewers of this channel have been told it's going in there, and they were told this week as well. We'll be going over the dramatics that unfolded with the inability of the moderate Democrats to realize you need to keep your promise when there's a situation at hand. And their promise was that the roads and bridges and the recon would be voted at the same time. When they tried to break that promise, the progressives pushed back, and they won, and you won as well. And with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers is a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family because guess what? It's a jam-packed weekend, just like last weekend, with meetings across the hour, by the hour, and all the latest details from inside of Washington as they happen. Like the video and consider becoming a member. Let's go to the incredible details first about passage of that recon, cluster number 1, 2, and 3's checks. Then we'll go over what Congress did yesterday. Then we'll be cutting back to the IRS monthly stimulus checks in there. We'll be going over the dramatics of what unfolded late yesterday and expected today. And then we'll go into more about those IRS stimulus checks and third stimulus as well. Stay to the final 15 minutes of this video. There's a lot coming up. Let's start with first those clusters. Your recon passes. $3.5 trillion reconciliation budget passed the subcommittee of the House a week ago today. This is huge. In there, 3 clusters, and the first cluster is deliciousness. It is checks for hazard pay, seniors, children, homes, cars, trucks, and students. And it starts right now. Hazard pay got in there. A lifetime change to the earned income tax credit, an old tax code, broadening the eligibility so more people qualify as essential workers and increase the amount of money that essential workers will get. And this would be lifetime. Number 2, they made a new provision that would pay up to $4,000 a year to care for an elderly person, and then up to $4,000 a year to care for a young child. College students got money in there, grants to universities, grants to them, and the Pell Grant made tax-free. Then home repairs got in there. If you're in a low-income community, the federal government will give you free money to repair the home. How about $51,000 of MSCs? They got there in there as well. Monthly stimulus checks amounting to $51,000 got into cluster number 1, passed. This is huge. They took the CTC credit and expanded it, the child tax credit, broadened the eligibility so more parents qualify that are not biological parents, and they're expanding it a lifetime. So if you have a child that's in a low-income household, you get up to $300 every month, every year for up to 18 years, which is $51,000 per child. It's huge. Then they got money in there for bikes, cars, and trucks, all electric and all U.S. auto manufacturers. First, 15% of the purchase price of a new electric bike. Then, up to $7,500 for the purchase price of a new electric vehicle for personal use. A little bit more for business use, and then the truck also for business use. Wow. In a second, we'll go over cluster number 2's checks in their past, cluster number 3 checks in their past, and then the assurances to nearly 1,000 viewers of this channel, including viewers this week, that there's an inclusion of a monthly stimulus check being added. Chuck Schumer's office confirming that in the last 48 hours as well. But first, let's take a detour for just a second to third stimulus, which got an extra cash infusion of $13 billion for rent, utilities, and mortgage assistance this last week and the week before. Treasury made the statement, and the statement said the following. Treasury is happy to provide the state and local governments with these additional resources to help Americans in time of rental assistance. I'm going to show you how to get this big money later in this video. Stay the final 15 minutes of this video. But time to get some more checks. You ready? I'm ready. Cluster number 2 checks passed. And this starts with paid family leave and paid medical leave. Huge. What is family leave? You have to stay home because your wife is pregnant. Medical leave. You have to stay home because your son broke his leg. Remember, forced stimulus has nothing to do with COVID. It's just life in general. How much does it pay? A lot. Up to $1,700 if you make $70,000 or more per year. That's per week, $1,700 a week. Then, let's say you make half of that, $35,000 a year, you would get up to $800 a week. Then half of that, $15,000 a year. If you make, then you would get $400 a week. And it's huge. Money would go to the employer from the federal government and then to you. There's a lot of checks in the second cluster, like build up a child care programs checks, household tax credit checks, checks for seniors like Medicare benefits, and then checks for weatherizing your home. I love that. Weatherize your home. Definitely needed to weatherize your home if the moderate Democrats are on the roof. Remember, keep the moderate Democrats out of the house. I had to go for that. Then universal pre-kindergarten. Then tuition-free community college. I love this one. This is especially popular to take that class, sweeping the nation, called What the World is Lalate Saying 101. Yeah, now you'll be able to speak fluent Los Angeles. It's a foreign language. Then we got green energy checks in there and good energy checks in there as well. In a second, we'll go over cluster number 3's checks pass and the IRS stimulus checks going to be added. So say those members of Congress. But first, let's take a detour to what is Congress doing? Congress is in town today. Congress will be meeting with the president again, House and Senate Democrats, and they'll be meeting amongst themselves. The progressives continue to have meetings on the half day, every day since Thursday. They meet about twice a day to ensure these House progressive Democrats that they are still aligned to vote down the roads and bridges. On a Thursday, a lot of dramatics. Thursday night was supposed to be the night in which Nancy Pelosi keeps her promise to call the vote on the roads and bridges per her agreement with the Goth gang, Gothenheimer, to which Gothenheimer said earlier in the day that the roads and bridges would 100% pass, 100,000% pass on a Thursday. It didn't even go for a vote. Nancy never called it for a vote on a Thursday, the roads and bridges, because the optics at the time would look like it had failed, that you call the vote and there was not enough votes in favor of it. The progressives had said going into the Thursday night vote that they had over 60 Democrats to vote it down when you can only spare 3 Democrats and lose a bill. Well, Pelosi didn't call for a vote. Much of Friday was a sitting and waiting game as the president brought the members back into meeting with him. I'll go over all those incredible meetings in just a second. But now let's cut to the third cluster checks that got in there, passed. Cluster number 3's checks are the president's checks. Free school meals for all checks passed. Tax break checks, cheaper prescription medication checks, checks for farmers, checks for clean energy, checks for workers, checks for independent contractors, checks for hearing, dental, vision checks, and lowering eligibility age, and checks for free internet. Two of the checks in this third cluster the president likes, I like them as well because they're instant savings to you. The first check is cheaper prescription medication. Let's say you wake up today and you have a headache listening to the moderate Democrats. So you go to the pharmacy, say, I want to take something from moderate Democrats. Oh, take a re-election. No, I want some prescription. Okay, that's two $20 bills. Here you go. Then this becomes law. Next time you get a headache because of the moderate Democrats, it would probably be tomorrow as well. You'll refill the prescription. You'll only have to take out half one $20 bill. There you go. Then they're going to make free internet available across the country. Red states, blue states. It's giving fortune cities and counties so they can offer you free internet. All you have to do is say, what's the username and password to get connected? The username is Goth Gang, go away. And the password is Jalapal, get them. There you go. Later in this video, we'll go over all the dramatics that unfolded yesterday, all the dramatics that unfolded Thursday, with this infrastructure versus recon voting drama in the House and the president's meeting attempt to intervene in the discussions, and what's going on today. But first, let's turn to those IRS monthly stimulus checks. The great news is that over the last 3 weeks, 1,000+ viewers of this channel have been told, after they advocate for a stimulus check inclusion by senators and House members, that the stimulus check is going in there monthly, $1,000 a month after the first month of 2006 months. Now, here's the fascinating twist, is that this week, many of those key elected officials repeated the same assurances this week after the passage of the recon last weekend. Like Sanders, Schumer in the last 48 hours to Donnie's wife, and AOC and Jalapal. Now, when the recon was passed in that House Budget Subcommittee, Nancy Pelosi and the president immediately came out and said, you know what, this is not a bill. This is just sort of a universe. You can add other things to it. It's sort of like my prop. My prop is a bill envelope, not a bill, not a bill document. It's sort of like an envelope. You want to add stuff in there? You can. And that's what Pelosi and the president said much of this week as well. The great news is that that's consistent with what those House and Senate Democrats have told viewers of this channel. They always use future verb tense. Will be, going to, is adding, is amending, going to be added. Very fascinating. And guess who also said that? Pelosi, about a week ago to viewers of this channel, her staffers as well. Well, there you go. The exciting details is that in the last 48 hours, we have seen incredible turnaround time. We have gone from a recon pass on the House subcommittee for budget to then seeing the progressives protect your recon like we've never seen anything protected. The progressives now showing that they're the dominant force in both the House and Senate, and the dominant force of social media and political support. The moderates, however, making several bad, misguided steps, showing themselves as a group that doesn't really keep promises, changes of their opinion by the hour, and very evasive and not forthcoming. That was a very clear image that they sent out this week, an image they tried to distance themselves with, and is the more that the moderate Democrats tried to sort of reconjure their image, it looked like they were just coming after the progressives. So what does that mean for you? Great news. And I'll have all incredible great news as we go into the second half of this video, as it heats up, because the toast is toasting, the butter is buttering, and the coffee is brewing. And I'll be here in 60 seconds as Early Mornings Alec continues.
If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LA Daily for the excitement of the new LA live daily. The excitement starts on Mornings LA at 9 a.m. Home LA returns at 11 a.m. daily. and then afternoons LA Late at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LA Late.
And the excitement continues right now on Early Mornings LA, as it's a big weekend, and guess who's working? Your House and Senate Democrats. They continue to caucus this weekend. All the latest details of their meetings, and also their meetings with the president. Coming up also in this video, the fireworks and dramatics from Thursday night and Friday as President Biden steps in. Meantime, we'll be going over all those incredible senators and House members, one after another, that have said negotiations are near complete on the inclusion of a monthly stimulus check. That would be $1,000 a month after the first month of $2,000. Those senators and their representations, Warren, Wyden, Sanders, Casey, Coons, AOC, and Jalopal and Omar. All those details coming up in just a second. Then we'll be cutting to what I anticipate for today, what I anticipate for this week, and then the twists and turns that are heating up for this stimulus, and also the big money for third stimulus. It's a big Early Mornings broadcast. I'm excited you're here. So subscribe. At 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family. Today's an example of why you have to subscribe. A week ago today was when they passed that recon. And if you weren't a subscriber, you would have missed it and may have never found that information until you found this channel. So hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video and consider becoming a member. Let's go over where these dramatics brought us and what these dramatics will look like in the last 48 hours. 48 hours ago, we were trying to figure out whether a roads and bridges bill would go for a vote. Now, let's sort of understand and recap, because I don't think I've done this in a couple of days, was that there were a series of agreements about how to do this recon. And originally, the recon had roads and bridges in there. Moderate Democrats said you have to take the roads and bridges out of the recon. So they took the roads and bridges out of the recon and put into something called the bipartisan, the infrastructure. Then the moderate Democrats said they were fine. Then Pelosi said, and the president and Schumer said that the roads and bridges and the recon would go for a vote at the same time. The president said, I have to have both bodies of legislation on my desk. I won't sign one body of legislation at all. The moderate Democrats made an agreement that both bodies of legislation would move together at the same time. Elizabeth Warren reminded everyone of this promise this week, that the moderate Democrats made that promise no less than 2 months ago. The moderate Democrats have since broken that promise. Then, moderate Democrats made a promise about the debt ceiling limit about 2 weeks ago. They also broke that promise. The moderate Democrats, meantime, were asked all throughout the week what they thought about the recon, and they wouldn't answer the question when asked directly by the president, over and over again. So the moderates went into the Thursday vote looking like they don't keep promises and that they're evasive when asked about the recon. The progressives on the other side tried to treat the situation with respect, not trying to look like they're trying to kill the roads and bridges. In fact, starting every sentence by saying how much they like the roads and bridges, but it doesn't go first. That we have to have assurances the recon goes as well. It was a very interesting approach and very different messaging, where Roads and Bridges group was really trash talking the progressives and their recon. And then the progressives keeping it professional, keeping it respectful, and not saying anything really negative about the roads and bridges. In fact, saying stuff positive about it, but saying our recon has to go first, or it has to be protected to go over the finish line. Nancy Pelosi had been sort of ambushed, I guess you would say, about a month ago by the Goth gang, part of the progressives, Gothenheimer, that had said you have to call the vote on the roads and bridges. So she agreed to a date, Thursday, which was this last Thursday, that she would call the vote. The Goth gang and the moderate Democrats' messaging was the following, that Thursday had a deadline that had to have the recon voted on, the roads and bridges voted on, because of this thing called ground surface transportation funding. Very complicated. It doesn't really concern you. They basically used this other thing as a reason why they thought there was a deadline. Jalopal at the time fumed back, saying there is no such deadline. That's a fake event, and you can just replenish that money by calling the Senate back in session, do an appropriations vote in 10 seconds. She was right. I'll show you in a second. So going into Thursday, the progressives saw themselves being trash-talked in the media, being lied to by the moderate Democrats, not seeing the moderate Democrats keep up any promise. And so what did the progressives say? We're going to vote down the roads and bridges. 60 votes in a place in which only 3 votes can vote it down. They had 60. What happened from that was that the moderate Democrats upped their attacks against the progressives verbally, and then it made very clear that the progressives absolutely were going to vote it down. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren told the House progressives to vote it down as well. By 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Thursday night, no vote was still happening. And at that point, it looked like Pelosi didn't want to call the vote. The strangest event of the night, which probably was the most pivotal event of this week, was the following. In my opinion, pivotal event, in my opinion, was the president sent over Brian Deasy. Yeah, the guy who I feature on this channel in the sirloin videos, and his other cabinet members to go meet with certain people. Who the president asked to have them meet with? Bernie Sanders, the chief negotiator for the recon. He's the guy who got the $3.5 trillion money. He's the guy who went in asking for $7 billion, but got everyone to agree to $3.5 trillion and got the recon procedural pass law with that price tag. Kristen Sinema, the moderate Democrat who wouldn't answer questions about what to do with the recon. And then these Biden cabinet members with Chuck Schumer. And guess what happened? The meeting blew up. Nothing happened. And it was over in about 5 minutes. What happened thereafter was really the pivotal event of the whole week. When Bernie Sanders came out and slammed the meeting, not the president, but the whole idea of having such a meeting, saying this is a critical amount of money, $3.5 trillion. Do you think I'm just going to come up with a different plan informally 11 seconds before I vote on the roads and bridges? I don't do business like that. He said, this is an absurd way to do business. I don't do business like this. And everyone agreed. Jalopal jumped on top of it and said, listen, if this was a sort of an attempt to have the progressives vote yes in favor of the roads and bridges when we're ready to vote no, based upon some promise again from the moderate Democrats who don't keep their promises, we're not doing that. If the moderate Democrats want to vote on a bill that gives us assurances that our recon is protected, we'll deal with it then. But we're not going to deal on a thinly veiled promise when the moderate Democrats haven't kept their promises. Absolutely not the same thing I would say. By 10 o'clock, the Pelosi camp had still not called the vote. Finally, by about 10:15, her and Steny Hoyer said, you can go home. Done. Pelosi had 3 opportunities. She could have called the vote and had it fail, or not called the vote and not had it fail, or number 3, just sort of, say, I'm done with the roads and bridges. What she did was she breached her promise to the moderate Democrats by not calling the vote, because she believed that calling the vote and having a non-passage of a Democratic bill by Democrats is the worst imagery she has ever had in her tenure. She would not want to show disunity among her Democrats. Now, we all know it's disunified because it didn't pass, because the imagery of the disunity did not exist there. So that's why she opted for it. Well, guess what happened minutes thereafter? Chuck Schumer then said everyone's coming back to the Senate tomorrow to issue more money for the surface transportation allocation. Yeah, I guess it wasn't that urgent situation. And guess what happened on Friday? They didn't even have the vote on it. So it wasn't particularly that urgent of a deadline for those roads and bridges. By Friday, the president brought the Democratic members of the House into a meeting with him, and then brought the members of the Democratic Senate into a meeting with him. And that is a very funny twist and turn of events. Moderate Democrats and progressive Democrats started going after each other because Democrats were leaking verbatim what was going on in the meeting against other Democrats to the news media. To which the news media said, it's not only Republicans that leak, Democrats leak all the time. There you go. Now, it's very, very peculiar, because what's strange at the situation right now is that the progressives, by all indications, have their feet in the sand deeper than they did even on Wednesday last week to absolutely protect your recon. And as AOC said going into the weekend, just call the vote on the recon now. It solves the situation. Call the vote on the recon now, not the roads and bridges. She's absolutely correct. More about this in a second and my impression of what I expect to happen over the weekend. But now let's turn to third stimulus for just a second. Third stimulus has that additional cash infusion of $13 billion landing cities, counties, and states, and I want you to get that big money. This money for rent, utilities, mortgage assistance may not continue to force stimulus, but it's available right there, right now. Get a pen, paper, and cell phone ready. We can go over all this big money you can get. And when we start with the rent, the viewers of this channel, Purple Hawks especially, the numbers have gone up 200% in a month. The numbers for utilities up 300% and SNAP up 400%. Let's look at the numbers for rent. This was a month ago. Purple Hawks. Have you become a Purple Hawk? You should. The link's in the video. They were getting $20,000 to $30,000 a month ago from this channel. Then Mark, you see him there. His brother-in-law getting now $15,000 for utilities, a 300% increase. Wow, Purple Power, you're doing great. Then Snap growing from this to $21,000 for Snap. Let's go over all these big sums of money, how you get them and all. Get that pen, paper, and cell phone ready. I'm going to show you 6 places to reach out to. You reach out to 6 places. First, there's different pots of money, so reach out to each of them. Second, they have different eligibility, so keep on pushing. And then I'm going to show you the keywords you're going to say, and then also show you the nonprofits. All right, here are the 6 places to reach out to. City Hall, City House Authority. County Hall, County House Authority. State Hall, and State House Authority. And the keywords you're going to say are rent assistance because of COVID, mortgage or utility assistance because of COVID. Let's go over the 6 places again. City Hall, City House Authority. County Hall, County House Authority. State Hall, and State House Authority. Now, if you're a member, which I hope you are, the link is on the video. Members are delivered daily. The newsletter, and the upgraded newsletter now has in there the letter from Treasury describing the $13 billion. I want you to know what that is before you make the phone call, because when you call, they will have that money, but potentially not today, maybe tomorrow. I want you to know what it is. Can I be on the waiting list? If there's no waiting list, can I call you tomorrow? Next, I want you to reach out to all utility companies. So if you have 5, reach out to 5. And 5 of the nonprofits also featured in the newsletter for members. The nonprofits, 5 of them are the following: United Way, Salvation Army, Community Action, Catholic Charity, St. Vincent de Paul. The nonprofits pay for all the items that they're in third stimulus, like rent and utilities, but with different eligibility. And then they pay for other sums of money that aren't even in third stimulus. That's why the nonprofits are so helpful. They pay sometimes for clothing, sometimes for house or home small appliances. They sometimes just pay for shelter, for homeless people into shelter. So they pay for a lot of other money. Here again are the 5 nonprofits: United Way, Salvation Army, Community Action, Catholic Charities, St. Vincent de Paul. They're also featured in the newsletter. It's important you understand that please do not post anywhere on this channel that there's no money in your state. Absolutely 100% incorrect. The nonprofits, when you combine the nonprofits with third stimulus, there is money everywhere. All right, let's turn to those SNAP benefits. Everyone's SNAP benefits are going up an average of 25% lifetime automatically starting this month. You're going to be getting that second letter this month. Some viewers already have that says your benefits are going up. Yes, October, your benefits go up an average of 25%. I know you got a letter that said they're going down in September because the September thing is over. Well, the lifetime one starts in October, so get ready for that. That's an average of 25% lifetime. Then 2 refund checks for unemployment benefits. 1, if you were overpaid unemployment benefits due to computer error from your state, it's coming back. Average payment is $2,000 to $5,000. Viewers continue to get these sums of money. You can track it by calling up your state and ask for it. And then finally, the refund check back from IRS. This is a huge one. It can be anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000. Margaret got it, Michael got it, Mark got it. Go to iris.gov to track it. And 70% of the time it works. If you've gotten any of these monies from this channel, post in the live chat right now, because when you do, you inspire other people to get these sums of money. Finally, if you haven't become a member, what are you doing? The link is under the video to become a Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Casino VIP. It's important to become a member because all this big money under third stimulus may not be repeated under fourth stimulus. Daily, I deliver the LA newsletter. It goes out about 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. It features all the big money available in the first, second, and third stimulus for you to get. That's how Johnny got $80,000, Mark $51,000, Mark's neighbors $100,000, Johnny's friends $100,000, Lorraine going from $105,000 now to almost $110,000, Jen $40,000 of rent. These sums of money, big sums of money, are available for you as well. So consider becoming a member so you get that newsletter daily. And with that, we go into the final 15 minutes of this video, starting right now, with exciting details about that IRS monthly stimulus check. Wow. Over the last 5 days, the same Democratic leaders also reaffirmed to viewers this channel after they advocated for the inclusion of a monthly stimulus check happening for stimulus recon. Chuck Schumer told Donnie's wife 2 days ago it's going in there, monthly stimulus check. Bernie Sanders' office told a viewer on Monday it's going in there. And AOC Jalapal and Omar's office told viewers this week as well. This follows after all of them told viewers of this channel over the last 8 weeks, 1,000 of our viewers, that IRS stimulus check is going in there. Let's go over all the details. 8 weeks ago, I told viewers to advocate for the inclusion of a stimulus check. Pick up the phone and say, I need it because this of my family and this. And WR did. He picked up the phone, called Senator Chris Coons, Democrat, Delaware, advocate for the inclusion of a stimulus check. I need it for my family and my community. And Senator Chris Coons' staff said, yes, he's putting in a monthly stimulus check. Then 3 weeks ago, you saw sort of how this channel transformed so quickly. I was getting a lot of exclusives, a lot of breaking, developing news by the hour, on the hour. And at the time, this is what I said. One, that the House would be writing the legislation of the recon. Now confirmed as true. Then number two, the House would vote first. Now confirmed as well as true. And that Bernie Sanders is critical to the equation. He's the guy who got a $3.5 trillion price tag for that recon and got it passed by recon procedural in the Senate. So, Bernie Sanders said 3 weeks ago, unlike prior budget chairmen of the Senate, I like to get out amongst the people when I'm doing a recon bill. That means he wants to hear from you. He wants you to advocate to him. And I said, pick up the phone and advocate to Bernie Sanders. And you did. Brother Joshua, Lynn Glenn, Margaret all picked up the phone and advocated for the inclusion of a monthly stimulus check to Sanders' office. And Sanders' office saying, yes, it's going in there. What does advocacy look like? What is the face of advocacy? Let's look at some screen grabs from some messages on the channel, in the live chat, or in private message to me on social media. Margaret writes, honestly, I am the woman on the phone, started crying when I explained everything I've been through. Another viewer says that she lost her husband. She's had 10 surgeries since his passing, and now she's raising 2 teenage daughters on SSDI and SSI. That's not enough money, she says. So that is what she writes. Well, what did Brother Joshua do? He picked up the phone and advocated for himself, for you, for his church, his community, his family. And Sanders' office said, yes, I'm putting a stimulus check provision in there, $1,000 to $1,300 for 4 to 6 months, but I need to hear your support. And we gave him that support. That's why in the last 5 days of this week, Sanders' office confirmed the inclusion again. It started with Johnny, who heard my message, Donnie, who heard my message and picked up the phone and advocated for the inclusion of a stimulus check. And what did Donnie write? Let's look at Donnie's message to me about that inclusion of that stimulus check provision. Here is Donnie. He writes, I called Sanders and his secretary, and they said they're doing a forced stimulus check, and that's why I need it. I need it to progress my city needs. I need it for everything. And they said, okay, they're doing a forced stimulus check, writes Donnie. Yes, that's the Donnie who I started this video with his wife, who also got the same confirmation from Schumer in less than 48 hours ago. The messages kept on coming on in, hour on the hour from viewers this channel. Here's Hurricane Tina. I called Bernie Sanders, she writes. Got through. They said they're doing a forced stimulus check. Then Lori making the phone call as well. Then Yaya saying, I got Wyden's office on the phone and they promised SS200 in there. Then Carolyn Smith writing, I've called Bernie Sanders' office, advocate because people are losing their homes and what they got. And they said, yes, Bernie's putting a stimmy check in there. And then Will showed us the importance of making as many calls as possible. 2 weeks ago, he made 3 phone calls. He called Bernie, Liz Warren, and Chuck Schumer. And all 3 secretaries confirmed the inclusion of a stimulus check during those conversations. He also writes what his conversation was with Elizabeth Warren's office. And they said that the senator is putting in monthly stimulus check. Liz Warner is putting in stimulus checks. That would be $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter, running 6 months. Here comes Lorica, who writes that she got Bob Casey's office on the phone and that they're in negotiations for inclusion of a monthly stimulus check as well. At that point, nearly 1,000 viewers of this channel had gotten confirmation from Coons, Sanders, Warren, Schumer, Casey, and Wyden, the Senate Democrats, for the inclusion of a monthly stimulus check. But I said, let's take it over to the House because we haven't pushed among House members. AOC, Jalapal, Omar, Pelosi started getting viewers' calls therein. And what happened with those calls to the House members? Let's go over the details with Paul. We just saw Paul. Here is Paul, who called over to AOC. He writes, she assured me that they will be adding it to the bill. $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter for 6 months. Janice writes, I called Jala Pauls, and they are putting a forced stimulus check in there. The messages kept on coming in like Mark. You remember Mark from earlier this video, $51,000 Mark? Here he is calling Pelosi's office. He writes, her staff told me there would be a fourth in there. The amount $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter. And there you go. Message after message, consistent message across the board, which is the inclusion to happen in the future. How does this work? Let's go over all the details. What's great here is that there's a consistent messaging by Pelosi and the president that the recon is not a bill yet. You want to add stuff in there? Add stuff in there. You got time. She, in fact, her staff telling Mark, she's added it in there. And that's what they said last Saturday. That's what they said this last week. It's important to understand that they have the opportunity to add stuff to the recon because it's not a bill yet. And that's what marking up legislation is about, making changes to it. Now, on the Senate side, they can also make changes. You have Warren, Sanders, Casey, Coons, and Ron Wyden and viewers like that, members like that on the Senate side, who want to already make changes if the House members don't get the changes in there. Meantime, the exciting details is that I want you to get as much money for rent and utilities as you can across the board. The rent and utilities money is available, and I want you to make a promise to yourself that you'll get the rent and utilities as far as you can. If you're a member of the channel, I hope you are. The link is under the video. You receive the newsletter every night from me at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. I want you to get rent and utilities as far as you can in the future. It's not cold out yet. People haven't been making the phone calls as much as they will be when we go into late October, early November. But I want you to get utilities and rent as far into 2022 that you possibly can due to eligibility. Then I want you to lean on the nonprofits as big as you can because they're not getting a lot of calls right now. It's not time to turn on the heating oil just yet in a lot of places. And so they're not getting those type of calls. They'll be swarmed by about late October, early November. But now, not the time yet. And viewers that we're putting a quick turnaround time for this money. Finally, fifth stimulus, raise your benefits up if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits. Applies a new benchmark. The new benchmark is inflation. Then removes the asset cap and removes the marriage penalty. When does this go to a vote? Later this year. They say they're going to get it done later this year. This is huge. If inflation goes to 5%, that means your benefits will go up another 5%, not just next year, but a lifetime. Finally, let's turn back to the dramatics and what I anticipate to see this weekend. What I anticipate to see this weekend is really sort of the president trying to find his place among all this. He has not been able to. The president has not been able to find his place among all this because, as Bernie Sanders and some of the progressives said, too much attention on the roads and bridges. Too much attention on the roads and bridges. I think that somewhere deep down, the president has to realize what the progressives see, which is that the president made concessions to the moderate Democrats over and over again. And each time he made concessions to them, they did less of a favor back to him on the backside. What did he do? He promised to pass this massive piece of legislation for the Americans several weeks ago. But the moderate Democrats said, take the roads and bridges out. Okay, I'll take the roads and bridges out as a concession. He took it out. Then he said, now that's out, we're going to have both bodies of legislation land on my desk at the same time, and I'll sign both of them into legislation at the same time. They'll be voted at the same time. Pelosi said the same thing. The president said the same thing. Schumer said the same thing. And the moderate Democrats said the same thing. 2 months later, moderate Democrats act like it never was said. And this is strange. Then, meantime, as you're sitting on the other side as a progressive looking in, and you say, wait a second, you specifically said, Mr. President, both body legislation land on your desk at the same time. You won't sign one unless you have the other. Well, wait a second. There's these group that are trying to just do roads and bridges and not try to do the recon. That's not the agreement. Delinking, linking, or whatever you want to call the word, has been a topic of discussion among these people. But ultimately, if it looks like the reason why moderate Democrats wanted to delink or separate the roads and bridges from the bipartisan so that only the roads and bridges would pass forward in their moderate Democrat mind, and that the recon would just sort of sit back and just sort of figure out its future universe, then anyone who supports the recon would absolutely not stand for that. Not stand for that. The imagery was always two bodies of legislation moving forward. In fact, this week, Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic caucus chair, said both bodies of legislation will move forward together and will both get over the finish line together. And I really think the president will try to find his footing to get back on that message at the same time. $3.5 trillion is a robust bill. It was proposed as $7 trillion. It's $3.5 trillion. And now they have also proposed and promised the viewers of this channel the inclusion of more checks, namely your IRS monthly stimulus checks. They can get this over the finish line, but they really need to figure out how to keep promises, because if you can't even get to the substance of the legislation because you're battling over the procedural element in and out by the hour and on the hour, then there may be issues. And ultimately, will they find those issues and that commonality? I believe they will. I'll have all the details as Congress remains in town today, remains in town tomorrow, and that can be put back into session at any moment to vote on any body of legislation or make any change of all the latest details. So with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I wish you part of the incredible family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Join me next on Overnight's Crypto, currently playing on this channel. Then we go into Morning's Countdown at 7 a.m. New shows at 9 a.m. today with Mornings Live. Then Morning's Crypto, and then noontime at 11 a.m. Subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, YouTube record.